What's happening, my flying friends, my crackheads? Oh, yes! Today we're going to talk about some fun stuff. Another edition of Cracker Sauce. We're taking you from Castle Ridge to Fillmore, baby. We're going big. We're continuing on from our VOR to Castle Ridge just a little earlier. That line is not the correct path, but we will talk about that in just a minute. So we're going step by step. We're going to blaze on through Fillmore, baby. Here we come. All right, we're going to zoom in here, Castle Ridge. So in the last edition of Cracker Sauce, we just went from VOR to Castle because those points are pretty specific. And remember, it's a good day. We're getting 4,200 or better. So here's the Castle Ridge area. And I used to get stuck in this from between here and Noon Peak all the time. I'd flush out, fly out. I always ask people. People always said, "Oh, you just gotta keep going. You gotta keep going. You just gotta keep going. Don't stop." I finally figured it out. I think they're right. So in these zones, it doesn't mean you just keep going. You kind of bump up and you keep going. You bump up and you keep going. You're rarely getting big altitudes and going on glide. So this Castle Ridge zone, it starts to get steeper. I don't think the thermals collect good as here. It kind of gets a little trashier sometimes, but it's easy glides. They keep you in the game. They keep you rolling. So from Castle Ridge, I like to try to get above this big, just above this guy here, this last kind of big rocky face one. You know, usually we're coming in, if you're coming in high, you're coming in on top of all this, but otherwise you're ridge soaring up this first part of Castle Ridge and you're cruising over. You're looking for bumps off this spine, you're looking for bumps off this spine. Sometimes you gotta work these faces, sometimes they don't do anything for you and you go back to this spine, but eventually you get just above this Castle Ridge. You got enough. You don't have to wait for that 4,200. You got enough. So if you get above this bump, you dive back to the OHV road. And this place can be kind of windy and funky, but it always produces. And the wind will just blow you in. You can see how these bumps from this one on kind of stick out. So I kind of aim in here, and you're coming in. You're kind of ridge soaring, bump up. If there's a good thermal, you keep going with it. If not, you go to the next one. So there's three of them basically in a row that kind of stick out more into the west. And you feel like you're getting low, but it's no big deal because once you get in here, boom! Start handling your glider, work your way up, and hopefully up and out. Otherwise, if you just get enough, you keep going to the next one, to the switchback. The switchback's usually where I get my highest in this Castle Ridge zone. The switchback is a big switchback from the OHV road. You can see it. Dive in right in here. See what? Boom! Big switchback zone. So I usually sit in this saddle, this zone, until I'm comfortable enough or until I feel I've maxed it out to keep going. Or some people just get even with this and keep going. This back ridge I usually don't find gets me a whole lot higher. It takes longer to get back there. So I usually just get enough at Castle Ridge, and then I'm on to the next three bumps, which are, we call them OHV bumps after the switchback. And from below ridgeline and all these, you can make it out to Carp. There's schools and landing zones in Carp that are pretty easy glides out, you'll see. And there's the back of Toro Canyon. There's some fields right here behind Toro Canyon you can land. But usually you're squeezing out along Snowball, and there's schools right below. So it's not that big a deal to get low on these bumps in here. But you just keep bumping them. Try to bump them, at least get to the top, maybe a little higher, maybe 3,600, maybe 3,700. Bump to the next OHV bump, 36, 37, 38. 38's pretty comfortable. Next bump 3, I usually hang out and take my time a little more because this next jump is a little longer to Snowball's daddy. And it kind of traverses this bowl back here, but I'll often just get up out front and just dive in here. I don't find that traversing the bowl puts you in much better of a spot. So usually OHV 3, bump 3, I'm a little more patient. That way I could dive into this flank as high as possible. So you get into this flank, you ride to the top, you come right to where they meet at the top of Snowball's daddy. And I'm usually patient there too, trying to get high because my next one is going to be Power Lines Ridge. Often there's little bumps and interesting things in between here and the Power Lines Ridge, but I like to try to start slowing down and figuring this stuff out. So Snowball's daddy's a good one. All the way down for Snowball's daddy, this is the Franklin Trail. Cruises all the way down this ridge, so you can land anywhere on this thing and walk it to Snowball, and you can relaunch in front of Snowball and fly out either here to the beach. So you have landing zones all from here to get back to this trail or fire road that runs from Snowball's daddy down to Snowball. So piece of cake back there. If you're below ridgeline, not that big a deal. You can always land and hike a little bit to a relaunch. Otherwise, Snowball's daddy, you're cruising on. The Power Lines Ridge. So Power Lines, you can't see it, but they go over the ridge top like about right here. Maybe more like right here. Somewhere in there. So there's a big bump you come to, sit in that, try to work it. Power lines are just on a ridge. Lift is sometimes in odd places. Look for the birds around here. They're often going up in weird places, and chase them. Go for it. Because it's hard to get up around here. I have a hard time. Truax says he always just goes around these power lines half the time to push into the Noon Peak area. But I like to get a little bit above them so I can at least soar this ridge down. Sometimes I get more stuff at the end of this ridge, but often it's just a little sucker thermal. But it will extend your glide to get you into Noon a little bit better. So power lines, you're moving on. Now you're starting to commit a little more because your glides are going to start getting a little longer, and your LZs are a little further out. So from the power lines, Noon Peak, West Divide area, you have Kate School, which is right here. So all these spines kind of bleed into Kate School right down here. So you have power lines you can get down in there, the Noon Peak, and West Divide. If you don't have too much headwind, you get back to Kate School, which is at it doesn't say it's very high here, but it's up in the foothills. So anyways, but we're not worried about that because it's a good day. We're going up. It's a beautiful thing. So we're going to cruise into Noon Peak. So there's this big trapezoid thing out front. Truax calls that the Noon Peak Knuckle. I like to try to dive into this flank back here and work this thing up. I have pretty good luck on that. I have a hard time once I'm down here with flushing out and making a good glide out and getting up here. So I like to try to work this west flank, get up on Noon Peak. It's a beautiful knife edge ridge right here. Now we're talking, I want to get over 4,500 feet before I make the next move. Plenty of people do it lower, but 4,500 is pretty minimal for me. So otherwise I'm gliding out to Carp from here. So 4,500 Noon Peak area, Noon Peak Knuckle area. We're aiming for West Divide. Pretty long glide, scenic glide. You're getting into the bigger hills. 4 big hills make up the pass here. We got Noon Peak, West Divide, East Divide, and White Ledge. So that's kind of the Casitas Pass area. You could take this back line. It's a little slower. People always say your altitude's worth more out front. But you could get up big back here too. I see plenty of people do it. But anyways, West Divide, I like to come in near the top of this thing, and this somewhere on this spine, up in this zone. It's a good place to be because you're going to boom out. You're going to take your time, get your cycle, get nice and high at West Divide. You're probably getting in the 5s now, at least over 45. And then it's another glide to East Divide. The big mistake is if you get low on West Divide and you glide out thinking East Divide down low is going to put out, it's not. This thing sucks. It's crap. Your landing possibilities are, there's a fire road that's at the bottom of this thing of East Divide that you can land on. So anywhere in this pass from Noon Peak to say East Divide is this fire road. It's about a 6-mile walk out from this zone all the way to the 150. So my suggestion on East Divide, everybody says it sucks. Don't stop there unless you're in the back. If you're high at West Divide and you can get to the back of East Divide where it meets the mountain more, then that's a great place to get up. But if you're trying to dive low, or not low, but regular from West Divide to these spines, these big rocky spines, they look like they should work, but they're crap. I would just keep going. The reason I say keep going is you have this whole mile zone below White Ledge you can land on this trail. And White Ledge down low works. You can come in way low on White Ledge and work your way up to the bump and back up to White Ledge. If you do land on this trail, you hike about a mile back up to this ridge, and in this zone, I think over here more, you could relaunch and glide out to Casitas Lake area pretty reasonably. So let's go over that again. West Divide, if you're high, you can go to the back of East Divide, get up again. If not, you're just skipping East Divide, gliding all the way to this low part of White Ledge and working your way up. You work your way up over the top of White Ledge, And now you're downhill towards Ojai. So you have choices here. From White Ledge, you could easily glide out to the lake. Remember, this ridge is pretty high out front. It's like 2,000, 2,500 feet, something like that. So it's something you have to clear. But if you're even with White Ledge, you can make the lake pretty easy. If you want to continue into Ojai, then you're cruising out. You're going to dive back a little bit towards this bump 3. So you go on glide towards the bump 3, bump 3, bump 2, bump 1. These things all put out well. And it's all downhill to the 33 river mouth. So it's pretty easy glide. It looks like a long way, but it's all downhill cruising down in here. Nut House launch is right across the 33. So you can just sled all the way down from White Ledge down here, and come in below Nut House launch and get back up. Truex has always said that on any day he's made it here, he's never sunk out of Nut House, even coming in at the bottom of it. So there you go, words of wisdom from the Truex man himself. So Nut House launch, on a good day, this whole zone is going up. You don't even have to get close to this thing and you start going up. You push back into these up to spine 1 and you're on your way. Ojai is, if you've made it here, then Ojai is, it's probably pretty easy to make it upper Ojai because the lapse rate's usually that much better. So if we had a good lapse rate was working in Santa Barbara, then Ojai, you just skip off these points, spine 1, Pyramid, the Nordoff Ridge area, Bruce's Point. You probably don't even have to turn a lot. Three Stooges. I'm patient here at Three Stooges because it's low and I want to try to come in and Twin Peaks a little higher, at least into these flanks. Three Stooges area to Twin Peaks. Lots of places if you have to land. You might be walking around people's land, but more than likely if you made it this far, these peaks are going to be putting out. We got West Repeater, East Repeater, and in Ojai, lift goes up in a lot more odd places. Santa Barbara, it's a lot more specific because our lapse rate's usually less and we're influenced by the marine air. But Ojai, sometimes the valley goes up, sometimes these foothills go up, so you could just be running into lift everywhere you go. So the tricky part is, from the repeaters or Boyds, your decision on how you want to connect with Santa Paula Peak. So often you get your last good one at Boyds and glide over low onto the west face of Santa Paula Peak and work your way up. Or some people like to dive back to the bluffs, to Puckers. Seems a little deeper back here. Puckers, this Topo Bluffs is huge. You can see it from the Highway 101 in Camarillo. It's a beautiful feature, stands out, but you probably get your highest here if you do work these bluffs. I've been to 10 Grand here once with Pterodactyl and Craig Warren. Craig Warren and I glided back from here to White Ledge, and Pterodactyl took the glide all the way to Ventura Beach, which is pretty cool. So you got options here if you get high. But you're more than likely continuing east and just using it to bump over to Santa Paula Peak. So even though it's a little further back, you'll probably get higher here. You could maybe come in higher at Santa Paula Peak. Otherwise, you're leaving from Boyds. If you're not getting high at Boyds, maybe work your way up to Puckers and try from there. You got the I forget how you say it, San Caliente or something like that college. I think it's down here to land at. There it is, San Thomas Aquinas College. That's it. So you got a landing zone right at the base of Santa Paula Peak. If you don't do it, get up in the upper Ojai area. If not, you continue on to Santa Paula Peak. You're trying to work this thing and get as high up to the actual Santa Paula Peak that you can. And once you do, you're going to be looking over beautiful Fillmore. And this is 8 times out of 10 probably the dead end because the east wind pours down the Santa Clarita River Valley here and spits out in Oxnard Ventura area. So more than likely, you're maxing your altitude here at Santa Paula Peak, and you're gliding out to Fillmore. From the Vaughn's landing zone, you can catch a bus back to Ventura or whatnot. But usually there's an east wind coming down here. There's an elusive east-west wind convergence that people have talked about for many years. Some people get it. But maybe someday somebody will get it and link across this hillside into Simi Valley. That'd be pretty cool. Or I know Truex and Chris Paul have gotten it and rode it kind of back towards Ventura too. So that's another cool line. The out and return record is from Skyport Eliminator to Topo Bluffs and back. So you can go for the out and return record if you want to try that. But anyway, Santa Paula Peak, usually dead end of the wind. Otherwise, you're flying to the F above Fillmore or Oak Mountain area and trying to continue on to the I-5. So that's it. If you got into Fillmore, nicely done. You've had a hell of a flight. You've flown probably 50-ish, 55 miles. What a day. Nicely done. High five, have a beer, get on the bus. Let's do it again tomorrow. I'm out. We're going to give a shout out to all the people and organizations that make free flight possible here in Santa Barbara and our surrounding areas. First off, we got Eagle Paragliding, which is eagleparagliding.com, one of the 2 paragliding schools in town. They will take you from zero to hero, baby. From the Bunny Hill to the mountains to all over the world. They got tours all over the place. They got SIV clinics going on with a boat and a lake. So hit up eagleparagliding.com. Arctic 4 is what I fly. It's the only glider I fly. I love it. I use it for everything. Niviac.com. Safest glider on the planet. Smash that bar and you're going places. Smoking those Enzos. Ha! Badass glider. I'm surfing the train all the time here in Santa Barbara. Never take a collapse, never a wingtip. I could launch this thing in technical conditions. I could fly it on the ridges and the training hill, hike with it. It's amazing. Get one. Fly Above All, our other paragliding school in town. You'll see them up at the VOR doing some tandems at the ridges, hanging out, supporting the local community. We got, and they are flyaboveall.com. Flyawayhanggliding.com. Willie, awesome hang glider instructor, ripper pilot, doing his thing here in town. Tandems all over the place. Call me if you want to learn how to hang glide. We got miniplaneusa.com. This is Chad Bastian's company. If you want to learn how to motor, take a lesson with Chad. Super fun. If you want to learn how to thermal too, watch this guy. He's at the hill every day for the last 20 years. Amazing technique. It's like an art form watching him thermal. Watch the way he moves his hands, the way he shifts his weight. You get a lesson all in itself just watching him. And then we have our Santa Barbara Soaring Association page, sbsa.info. You can see the chat box on here when people are talking about flying. The Twitters replicate on here from the 2 paragliding schools of when they're meeting and where the flying's happening. We also have a visiting pilots page. Santa Barbara Soaring Association keeps our sites flyable, our sites insured. Our Wind Talkers talking, so we definitely want to contribute to them. Definitely hit up a local before you come flying or one of the paragliding schools. All the contacts are on the visitings page, and you have to be a member to fly our sites. So we have a little donate here. You can donate and do it right online and be all set for when you come fly. So welcome to paradise.